Hello, everybody. Saint Coyote here, back here again, and it's Final Fantasy Day again. Yeah, 38 years this year. This year we have a few milestones of the franchise. This year, actually, from let's do youngest to oldest. Final Fantasy VII remake released in 2020. Don't remember the month off the top of my head. The original mess of Final Fantasy XIV released in 2010. My second favorite in the franchise, Final Fantasy IX, released in July of 2000. Also out in America too that year, November. I recall that actually very well. And what I usually list as my third favorite, Final Fantasy III, released in April of 1990. And as a little side note, apropos to these, is the first game released in America in July of 1990. Quite a set of stuff. As always, I do not want to say too much about the individual games right now, as I do intend to play them all and discuss it in detail when I get to them. Or maybe the next milestone I might have, have to get there first, of course, but whatever. So, I think I'll just do that for now. I don't really have any fancy video as usual to do for this, but it's just, just a reflection on, I guess, the milestones and the big things about this year that I've done with this series is good enough, even if I don't put some fancy video together. So, quite the set for this year. I guess I can go the opposite direction this time. But I'll just point out quickly 414. That was the first time it was released. Had some problems. That's all I can really say. Despite that, a few years later, we get a proper fixed release, but that's for another year, of course. Okay, so first then, 35 years. One that I've actually played recently and had a little bit of dead runs this year for, now I think about it. As I said before, it's my third favorite, though at times I feel like that changes for maybe, 4 or 5 probably, quite honestly. It's quite a game, though. I think it can stand above or be equal with Dragon Quest III and on the Famicom, even as far as I'm concerned. Came at the first iteration of the job system, which was frankly cool to see again after 5, since I played 5 first before I played 3. And that was indeed groundbreaking. And I can't think of any game otherwise at that time that was even so like that, except maybe, again, Dragon Quest 3. But there are actually some great customizations that you can make for a party. I've done some crazy runs in the past. It was a tough game in places, but I got through it with my sanity intact. More on that in a second. It was also cool to see some of the early ideas in the game after all the most recent games. More ships, for instance. Nice touch there, having different ships. I love the story. And it's a really well-polished game after the first 2, and I actually was surprised to see a much beloved race for the first time in the series. Now, let's be real here for this one. The job system is great. Some great jobs. It's sad that some of the jobs are useless or redundant, though. You pretty much play some jobs with others because you have no choice. It was a tough game in places, as I said. No, really, it can be there. Or some places it spikes in it, but I've ironed that out over time. Sometimes. And the end of the game, complete lack of anything helpful. They even said they did it wrong, too, so there you go. The story, honestly, is a bit weak in places in the original. Your characters are blank slates, and there are places with it. While it is a cool idea, you are forced to change to certain jobs. Again, I've worked around that, but really, why so forced? I mean, it's a pain. I digress. Apart from all that, it really is a great game. It's been more fleshed out since then, I would say. I have played the Pixels Remaster, I just said this year, for this, and they did make enough changes to take away from the data mechanics and to fix the clunky parts. So good job there. I hope that more people can play it in the future. I say still worth it, even today. Play the original, too. Why not? All right, so next up is Final Fantasy IX, 25 years. My second favorite game in the franchise. Talk about a polarizing game. I know some young people that were like, what? It's like it made sense to me even then. All the callbacks, somewhere that I got having at least played 5 as well at that time. But haven't played all the other games that came out here as well. It's good to have that perspective, and I guess when you were younger, you didn't have that perspective. The art style didn't bother me either. Honestly, not sure what the whole idea of 7 and especially of 8, that we needed the futuristic real characters. This is a fantasy series after all, but even that has its variations, so I will let that pass. I am also a steampunk and cyberpunk fan, so, whatever. Anyway, I remember the magazines talking about it, 9, and when I finally had a chance to spin it, I was amazed. It was so great to see a proper black mage again with Vivi, and the characters with true classes. Classic jobs: thief, dragoon, summoner. I love Garnet's lovely little nod to the white mage. And of course he's even a mighty monk in the game. There's been monks in most games, so it's great to see a monk again. There's all with a great system, a great setting, again, some of Uematsu's finest music. In fact, my favorite track comes from this game. Not my favorite soundtrack, but my favorite track comes from this game. What an adventure. What an adventure. One of the few games I've ever played that has made me cry. It's such an adventure. Over 4 discs of it, too. I mean, there's some blemishes to it since there's no perfect game, at all. But that in no way tarnishes its legacy at all. Ask anyone who's played it, and they will just go on about it. I'll say no more, but, I will say it was great to see the anniversary this year. All the great artwork that people created, all the stories I heard from others that have played it, young and old, like me. And especially younger people who just love Vivi, which I'm sure many of us can agree. It was one of the greatest characters, probably the best characters in the franchise. And then last, here, the new remake released in 2020, as I said, 5 years ago. I didn't think it was that long. We've waited years for a remake of 7, a lot of us. The hype of the PS3 technical demo, I remember that, which was also a milestone. That was 2005, actually, now think about it. And, rumors everywhere, since that there was more to come at every Square show that there ever was. Like, oh yeah, we'll do it someday. There'll be one. I've only seen bits and pieces in passing from my great friend Kiryu, and the odd YouTube video here or there. I heard some of the music as well, some beautiful recreations or upgrades to the music. I'm waiting for the game to be fully released, and then I would reserve judgment then. But for now, I don't know what I really think. I have my doubts. But what they did with the game in some ways, honestly, was good the way it was, for whatever that's worth sometimes. Until then, hard to believe it has been 5 years since that came out. I thought it was sooner, somehow. So with the milestones out of the way here for now, what have I done this year? Well, as before, I played the Pixel Remaster of 3. Quite enjoyed that. I also played part of 5's Pixel Remaster, and I was actually playing a newer translation. The newer translation has come up in more recent years of 5, and I figured I'd give it a spin to see what that's all about. It so far is not a bad translation. I guess I'll have to compare it sometime. Maybe I'll make a video about that, I guess. I also briefly streamed 4 Naming Way Edition. Quite forgot some of that now. I tried to have to do that again to see the new translation changes again. Let's see. I also did a new hack version of 6. I don't recall which one that is off the top of my head. Same idea, though. I've kind of have to go back to that. I'm still trying to keep away from the Pixel Remaster so I don't spoil it at all. Really, because I do want to play that, and I still want to see it in its glory someday, just to sit back and play it. Last, I did try, now that I think about it, I did try 2's Pixel Remaster. The part that I did was not bad. I was thinking about doing that version instead, because I still have to run through that game. That's my next one, since I already did 1. But I'll attempt the original anyway, next. I'll try to get some sort of plan together, some of the ridiculous difficulty of the game, and I want to continue my run through and discussion of the game, so I have to. All right, for now, I think I've gone on long enough. Maybe more than I said I would, too, to be fair. But yeah, I guess the briefest thing I can say at the end of this now is it's crazy to believe that, yeah, it's a milestone that that first game came out in 1990. I didn't play it that year. I was a year or 2 out from that. The SNES was already out when I was playing that game. A friend of mine's brother had, the NES, and they got the SNES. He was lucky enough to actually get that at that time. And 2 was easily right there at the beginning of that time. 4 was right there. So he wanted to play through the original, and he just couldn't figure it out. Like, it was so difficult for him. He was much older than the 2 of us, a few years even, so I would think he would at least try. And my friend and I, we just played through that first game, and we beat it. It was so cool. It was a great experience. I mean, it was really difficult, though. I remember being absolutely punishing, and even at that age. And it was crazy enough to think that a bunch of, 5-year-olds could figure that out. But we did, and it was enjoyable. But yeah, I remember that first game. It's It was the beginning of a good journey. It truly was. I should probably play 9 before the year is out. So many games, so little time these days. And in closing then, I don't care if it isn't true anymore or cliche at all. I think it fits really well, despite the more recent years being rather questionable here, as always. But not bad for something that was supposed to be final. Happy 38th anniversary, Final Fantasy.